Around the NFL breaks down what you need to know from all of Sunday's action in Week 15 of the 2025 NFL season. Catch up on each game's biggest takeaways using the links below. Early games: Chicago Bears 31, Cleveland Browns 3. Baltimore Ravens 24, Cincinnati Bengals 0. Houston Texans 40, Arizona Cardinals 20. Jacksonville Jaguars 48, New York Jets 20. Los Angeles Chargers 16, Kansas City Chiefs 13. Buffalo Bills 35, New England Patriots 31. Washington Commanders 29, New York Giants 21. Philadelphia Eagles 31, Las Vegas Raiders 0. Late window: Denver Broncos 34, Green Bay Packers 26. Los Angeles Rams 41, Detroit Lions 34. New Orleans Saints 20, Carolina Panthers 17. Seattle Seahawks 18, Indianapolis Colts 16. San Francisco 49ers 37, Tennessee Titans 24. Sunday night: Minnesota Vikings 34, Dallas Cowboys 26. 3. Cleveland Browns 3-11, 31. Chicago Bears 10-4. Full box score. Rewatch: Browns Bears on NFL Plus Premium. Nick Shook's takeaways. Takeaway masters do it again. Chicago's defense has been the most opportunistic bunch in the NFL in 2025, and Sunday only further justified this fact. The Bears intercepted Shedeur Sanders 3 times, making a trio of excellent plays on Sanders' passes to increase their takeaway total to 30, and capitalized on each turnover by scoring 2 touchdowns and a field goal on the 3 extra possessions. An assortment of characters got in on the party Sunday, with it DeMarca Jackson reading Sanders' eyes and tipping a pass to himself, Jalen Johnson grabbing an accurately thrown ball from the arms of Jerry Jeudy in the end zone, and recent addition Chauncey Gardner-Johnson expertly anticipating a pass intended for Harold Fannin Jr. and drifting back to steal the ball out of the air for an interception. Thanks in part to these takeaways and a clear edge in energy and desire, Chicago delivered its best defensive showing of the season, helping the Bears cruise to a December victory. This feels like the end of the Kevin Stefanski era. While much of the Browns' issues can be blamed on the team's dreadful decision to trade for Deshaun Watson, it's difficult to imagine Browns ownership doesn't make at least one significant change at the end of the 2025 season. Cleveland was outclassed by Chicago for all 4 quarters Sunday, giving up more Bears first downs than the Browns had total plays early in the second quarter and looking like a team that didn't belong on the same field as the Bears. Cleveland never threatened Chicago in this contest, converted just 4 of 14 third down attempts, was outgained at a rate of nearly 2-1, forfeited in the form of fearful punts on multiple occasions, and appeared disinterested in continuing a game played in brutally cold conditions. Shedeur Sanders continues to produce a few great moments per game and fill the rest of the contest with many more forgettable plays, including a truly disheartening and fruitless goal-to-go series to end Sunday's game, and the only intrigue remaining with this team is Myles Garrett's pursuit of the single-season sack record, which he's now just 1 sack from tying after logging 1.5 QB takedowns Sunday. If they were showing incremental signs of improvement, perhaps Jimmy Haslam could justify keeping Stefanski. These Browns, however, are simply trudging toward an offseason that might include a search for a new coach. Caleb is a magician. On a brutally frigid day along the shore of Lake Michigan, Chicago could have leaned on its physical running game and given Caleb Williams a break. Ben Johnson wouldn't approach a game so passively, though, resulting in a 32 dropback afternoon for Williams, who proved the elements were no match for the fire within him. Williams threw an assortment of outrageously accurate passes in the cold Sunday, dropping dimes while rolling out, escaping Cleveland's pass rush to extend plays, and producing one of his best highlights of 2025 when he rolled right and refused to give up on the play, launching an off-platform rainbow toss to DJ Moore, who snagged the ball between 2 defenders for a touchdown. As the Bears ascend, so does Williams, whose ability to extend plays is approaching elite territory. His performance Sunday against a respected Browns defense only proved it. Next-gen stats insight from Browns Bears via NFL Pro. Caleb Williams completed 10 of 13 passes for 141 yards, 2 touchdowns and a 151.0 passer rating on play-action passes, his highest such passer rating in a game this season. NFL research. With the Bears' Week 15 win, Ben Johnson became the 3rd head coach in Bears history to win 10-plus games in his first season with the team, joining George Halas in 1920 and Matt Nagy in 2018. 24. Baltimore Ravens 7-7, 0. Cincinnati Bengals 4-10. Full box score. Rewatch: Ravens Bengals on NFL Plus Premium. Read: Bengals officially eliminated from postseason contention. Eric Edholm's takeaways. Ravens defense bottled up Burrow. The Ravens' postseason hopes are still in question, but their defense delivered a playoff-worthy performance in shutting out the Bengals and Joe Burrow. It's the first time Burrow has started and finished a game in which the Bengals haven't scored a single point. The Ravens intercepted Burrow twice, including a 95-yard pick-six by Kyle Van Noy. The Bengals trailed only 17-0 with just under 8 minutes left, but Tavius Robinson's pressure led to Burrow's errant pass. The defense got Robinson and Ardarius Washington making his 2025 debut back from injury, and they made a tangible difference. Robinson had a sack. He's still the team leader despite being out since Week 6 and 3 QB hits and could be a hidden weapon as the Ravens make their final push. They still have 2 tough games before what could be the deciding game against the Steelers in Week 18, but this defensive showing gave hope they can hang down the stretch. Bengals defense did its job, but offense came up short. The Bengals wasted one of their best defensive performances of the season, keeping the Ravens relatively in check, but it came in a game where the offense couldn't finish off drives. The Bengals reached the Baltimore 40-yard line or better on 5 possessions but came up empty on each of them, with a punt, 2 interceptions and 2 turnovers on downs. The Bengals didn't have T. Higgins, but that wasn't the reason they lost. Jamar Chase had 10 catches for 132 yards, but he also had a few early drops, with one pass that hit his hands ending up a Ravens interception. Andre Iosivas also had a costly drop on what could have been a catch for 30-plus yards. Defensively, a big game was had by Myles Murphy, who had a sack and tackle for loss on back-to-back plays and was in the backfield a lot. Jordan Battle also had a diving interception of Lamar Jackson, and the Bengals were mostly good on defense outside a few long drives allowed in the second quarter. But needless to say, Burrow and the Bengals offense absolutely must share the blame in a game that pretty much ended Cincinnati's faint playoff hopes. Ravens leaned on run game to keep playoff hopes alive. Lamar Jackson took 4 sacks and had a few on-target passes dropped by his receivers, finishing the game with a mere 12 official attempts. The Ravens ran only 40 plays all game, but they averaged 7.9 yards per play, and the same average on the ground, running for more yards than they passed for. After a slow start, Derrick Henry reached the 100-yard mark on only 11 carries, hitting 3 runs of 22 yards and longer after halftime. Jackson had a few productive scrambles, and Keaton Mitchell also chipped in with 8 carries for 66 yards. Rasheen Ali didn't get any handoffs, but he scored his first NFL TD on a 30-yard catch and run that got the Ravens on the board. That classic Baltimore formula, a healthy run game combined with an active defense, is the formula the Ravens have been seeking all season, and they found it in a must-have game against a Bengals team that thumped them on Thanksgiving. It wasn't the crispest offensive showing, but it was good enough in a game the defense dominated. Next-gen stats insight for Ravens-Bengals via NFL Pro. Lamar Jackson's 28-yard TD pass to Zay Flowers. Flowers' first TD since Week 1 traveled an air distance of 46.8 yards. NFL research. This was the Bengals' first time being shut out since Week 1 of the 2017 season versus the Ravens. 20. Arizona Cardinals. 3-11. 40. Houston Texans. 9-5. Full box score. Rewatch. Cardinals-Texans on NFL Plus Premium. Eric Edholm's takeaways. Texans had the offensive showing they needed. The Texans are closing in on a playoff spot, and no one is doubting their defensive prowess. But for Houston to be a dangerous postseason team, the offense must raise its game, and Sunday was a good building block. Even with a few disappointing red zone trips, the Texans moved the ball readily against the Cardinals, scoring on their first 5 drives. The streak would have been longer had it not been for a blocked field goal by the Cardinals, one of the few mistakes on the day by the Texans. Their only punt came with less than 9 minutes left in the game, protecting a double-digit lead. C.J. Stroud had one of his cleaner games of the season, and the Texans ran the ball effectively even without Nick Chubb. Woody Marks ran in a fumbled snap for a score, and Jafar Jordan off a 50-yard jaunt in his NFL debut, totaling 101 rushing yards. The offensive line allowed some pressures, but Stroud was only sacked once and had the time he needed to operate. McBride was one of the few bright spots for Cardinals. The Cardinals lost their 6th straight game, and their 11th in 12 outings, in what has been a lost season. After digging a 17-0 hole through the first 6 minutes for themselves, they fought back from a 30-7 deficit to make it a 2-possession game, but once again they came up short. One of the few bright spots of the season, and especially Sunday, has been Pro Bowl tight end Trey McBride, who reached the 100-catch mark and 1,000 yards for back-to-back seasons, something not even Travis Kelce has done. McBride caught the Cardinals' first 2 TD passes of the game and had 12 receptions on 13 targets for 134 yards, with 97 of those yards coming after the catch. The Texans held him to only a pair of catches after McBride's second TD, but as good as they are defensively, they had few answers for the Cardinals' tight end. Arizona's offense figures to look different in multiple respects next season, but the one thing you can absolutely count on is McBride being a centerpiece. He might be the Cardinals' best all-around player. Texans still stout defensively, but they'll have a challenge down the stretch. The Texans have been one of the best defensive teams in the NFL this season, and that mostly continued in the 40-20 victory over the Cardinals. But their struggles containing Trey McBride opened up a discussion point about a possible crack in their armor. The Texans had defended tight ends very well this season, allowing only 4 TD receptions entering Sunday, but McBride scored twice and had 2 or more receptions in every quarter Sunday. Houston played mostly zone Sunday, but it tried multiple players covering McBride, with LB Henry To'oTo'o particularly struggling in one-on-one matchups. It might be an area of emphasis this week in practice, as Houston will face 3 good tight ends down the stretch: the Raiders' Brock Bowers, the Chargers' Arund Gadsden II, and the Colts' Tyler Warren. Next Gen Stats Insight for Cardinals Texans via NFL Pro. Texans WR Nico Collins recorded 3 receptions on 4 targets for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, with all of his production coming on in breaking routes. NFL Research. Trey McBride now has the longest streak of games with 5 or more receptions by a tight end in NFL history with 16, passing Travis Kelce 15 on the all-time list. Lawrence lays waste to New York. Don't look now, but the Jaguars are one of the hottest teams in the AFC. Jacksonville won its 5th straight game Sunday running away, racking up 31 points in the first half on the lowly Jets and never looking back. Trevor Lawrence had a career day, tossing 5 touchdown passes to 3 different receivers, including 3 to a running back, Travis Etienne, and running 1 in himself. Lawrence led the team in rushing 51 yards, in addition to throwing for 330 yards and leading 8 scoring drives in 9 marches. How rare was the former number 1 pick's afternoon? He's the first player in NFL history with at least 5 passing TDs, 1 rushing TD and 50 rushing yards in a single game, per NFL Research. The 5th-year QB is coming into his own down the back half of Liam Cohen's first season in Duval. Lawrence misses a pass now and again, but he's often more decisive and capable of splash plays. See the QB's blindside rollout 50.1-yard air distance completion to Parker Washington. He's never been better, and the Jags are better for it. Jets defense DOA again. For the 2nd straight week, New York fell into a 14-0 deficit nary 9 minutes into the game. And for the 2nd consecutive game, the Jets never got out of the early hole. With an undrafted free agent QB under center in Brady Cook, Gang Green couldn't afford to get out to such a start. Cook was efficient on his 2nd drive, tossing his first career touchdown to Adonai Mitchell to punctuate the march. But the Jets' defense, shorthanded in the secondary, was characteristically poor and porous on its ensuing possessions, allowing 6 touchdowns and 2 field goals in 9 total Trevor Lawrence-led drives. Adding insult to insult, the Jets still don't have a single interception through 14 games, though for what it's worth very little Gang Green did recover a fumble in Sunday's loss. New York has struggled to adapt to life without Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, and first-year defensive coordinator Steve Wilks should be at risk of not returning next season. It's not all bad for New York, however. With the loss, the Jets continue to slide closer to a top 5 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Jaguars stay atop South, keep pace with AFC Elite. At 10-4, the Jaguars have clinched their most wins in a season since the Saxonville defense paved a way to the AFC title game. But the job's not done. The Jags remain just a game ahead of the surging Texans, who moved to 9-5 with their win over the Cardinals, and at least a game ahead of the collapsing Colts, led by the unretired Phillip Rivers. Jacksonville will be tested in Week 16 with a trip to Denver, which entered Sunday as the AFC's number 1 seed, but the Jags close out the season with a zombie Indy team and the 2-win Titans. If all goes to plan, Jacksonville will be hosting a playoff game on Wild Card Weekend. A first-round bye can't be ruled out either. Next Gen Stats Insight. For Jets-Jaguars via NFL Pro, Trevor Lawrence was at his best Sunday targeting the intermediate area of the field, completing 9 of his 12 attempts between 10 and 19 air yards for 144 yards and 3 touchdowns. Lawrence is one of just 2 quarterbacks to record a perfect passer rating, 158.3, on such throws in a game this season. Justin Herbert in Week 1 vs KC. NFL research. Trevor Lawrence is just the third player with at least 5 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing TD and no interceptions in a single game over the last 30 seasons, joining Drew Brees Week 14, 2019, and Aaron Rodgers Week 7, 2019. Lawrence is the second QB in Jacksonville history with 5+ pass TDs and no INTs in a game. Blake Bortles. Chargers win another rock fight. In a game that was eerily similar in appearance to Los Angeles' Monday night win over Philadelphia, the Chargers again proved to be the tougher, more resilient team. It was an ugly win, no doubt, producing 8 combined punts, 3 turnovers, 11 of 27 converted third downs between the two teams, and 14 combined penalties, but as the Chargers proved in Week 14, they're capable of making key plays to emerge victorious. This time around, 2 fourth-quarter interceptions prevented the Chiefs from tying or taking the lead and ultimately sealed a season sweep for Los Angeles, the first season sweep of the Chiefs since the Denver Broncos accomplished it way back in 2014. Los Angeles' defense played with palpable aggression and intensity, even leading to Tony Jefferson's ejection, and came to Arrowhead Stadium with 1 goal, bury the Chiefs and prove they're no longer the fearsome big brother of the AFC West. The Chargers did just that, winning the physical battle and proving they are the tougher, better team. Chiefs go out with a thud. Entering Sunday, Kansas City faced playoff elimination if a series of results lined up properly, and when those results became official, the nightmare began to envelope Arrowhead Stadium. A close, low-scoring affair became a tense contest in the fourth quarter, a set of circumstances in which Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs traditionally thrived in previous seasons. This time around, it sank them. On a promising fourth-quarter drive, Mahomes threw a brutal interception on a pressured pass intended for Kareem Hunt, who was blanketed by Chargers linebacker Daiyan Henley and never had a chance to catch the ball that landed in Henley's grasp. Given one last chance to tie the game and keep their playoff hopes alive, the Chiefs' dreams died in heartbreaking fashion. On a drive that began at Kansas City's 8 and crossed midfield, Mahomes suffered a knee injury while scrambling, requiring Gardner Minshew to fill in for him in the game's final minute. Minshew completed 3 passes to move the Chiefs to the edge of field goal range, but tossed an ill-fated ball to Travis Kelce, who was blanketed by Derwin James and watched James snag the pass for a fitting, victory-sealing interception. For the first time since 2014, the playoffs will not include the Chiefs, a sobering reality for the AFC's Goliath, who went out more like a lamb than a lion. Herbert is overcoming incredible adversity. Here's a crazy stat for you. Justin Herbert has been sacked 11 times in the last 2 games, tying for the most in any 2-game span of his career with weeks 9 and 10 of this season. Herbert is under constant assault in what can only be kindly referred to as a pocket. He's playing with a surgically repaired fractured left hand, and yet, he's managed to carry the Chargers to 2 straight wins in the last 6 days. On Sunday, he completed 19 of 29 passes for 210 yards and a crucial touchdown pass just before halftime to cut Kansas City's lead to 13-10, helped the Chargers move into field goal range for 2 Cameron Dicker 3-pointers in the third quarter and generally played the role of a superhero in a raucous road environment that has traditionally been unkind to him in the past. This situation would be disastrous for almost any other quarterback in the NFL, but somehow, Herbert is thriving. He deserves all of the credit for keeping this offense afloat and the Chargers on a winning track. Next-gen stats insight for Chargers Chiefs via NFL Pro. Justin Herbert faced the blitz on 19 of his 34 dropbacks, 55.9%, the second highest blitz rate he has faced this season. Herbert completed 10 of 17 passes for 101 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception when facing the blitz. NFL research. Justin Herbert has been sacked 4+ times in a career-high 6 games this season. He owns a 5-1 record in those games, the most wins when taking 4+ sacks this season, and tying with Sam Darnold for the most by any QB in the last 5 seasons. Allen, Bills overcome slow start, dominate Patriots in second half. Buffalo opened Sunday's AFC East bout with back-to-back 3-and-outs and 3 straight punts. The slow start got the Bills behind the 8 ball, trailing 21-0, midway through the second quarter. Then Josh Allen heated up. Buffalo scored touchdowns on 5 consecutive drives, including 4 straight to open the second half, flipping a big deficit into a lead. Allen ripped rifles all over the Patriots secondary. The reigning MVP went 19 of 28 passing for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. He added 11 rushes for 48 yards. At halftime, Buffalo had just 76 total yards and 5 first downs. It finished with 349 yards and 22 first downs. This offense can flip the script that fast. When James Cook 107 yards, 2 TDs is ripping off positive runs, and Allen avoids turnovers, the Bills' offense is a beast to contain. Even if you keep the Bills down for a half, they're never out of it. Patriots collapse on both sides of the ball. Through the first 2 quarters, Drake May looked like an MVP, ripping apart the Buffalo defense with his arm and legs. The second-year quarterback authored 3 scoring drives on the first 4 possessions, including 2 rushing touchdowns. Couple that with TreVeyon Henderson's 52-yard touchdown dash, and the Pats looked like they were going to run away from their division rival. However, the defense turned into a sieve in the second half. The Pats couldn't pressure Allen regularly, allowing him to rip apart the secondary, and the run D got leaky. New England's porous red zone defense reared its head once again, allowing Buffalo TDs on its first 5 red zone drives. Outside of a Henderson 65-yard touchdown blast, the offense did next to nothing in the second half. New England went 3 and out twice, and May threw an arm punt. The QB threw for 108 yards in the first 2 quarters, but just 47 in the final 2. With a chance for a comeback bid late, the Pats earned just 5 yards, turning it over on downs on 4 plays. Division race heats up. With a chance to clinch the AFC East Sunday, Mike Vrabel eschewed talk of Sunday being a shirt and hats game. His young squad showed why the head coach wasn't getting ahead of himself. The Pats built a big lead and looked to run away with the division early. However, the faltering on both sides of the ball showed how far Vrabel's young squad still has to go. Against an MVP player like Allen, it's never over. On the flip side, the Bills showed why they are never out of it. A defense that couldn't get a stop early made massive plays late. Joey Bosa continued to play a central role, deflecting a May pass late to force a turnover. Falling to 11-3, the Pats still control their path to the division title. Next Gen Stats gives them a probability of winning the AFC East at 63%. The Bills solidified their playoff spot, and have a 37% probability of overtaking the Pats in the division. Next Gen Stats insight for Bills Patriots via NFL Pro. In the first half, Josh Allen averaged just 2.4 air yards per attempt, failing to complete a pass over 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. Allen significantly increased his aggressiveness in the second half, averaging 9.8 air yards per attempt and completing 4 of 7 downfield passes for 91 yards and a touchdown. NFL research. The Patriots had a 124-1 record when leading by 21+ points at any point in a home game in team history entering Week 15. New England had won 104 straight home games when leading by 21+ points. Commanders D. Special teams flip game just before half. New York seemed to course correct after a laborious start to pull within 6 points shortly before halftime. But then after following up a Commanders 3 and out with one of their own, the Giants were forced to send off a punt from their 15-yard line with 80 seconds remaining in the second quarter. Rookie Jalen Lane collected it at the Washington 37-yard line and darted through a hole in the middle of the field, splitting the Big Blue Seas to go 63 yards and make it a 2-score game. Rather than lick their wounds and head into the locker room knowing they'd receive the ball first in the third quarter, the Giants instead tried to find a way to double-dip. That was a mistake, as cornerback at Sanistral Mike Sainristil picked off a Jackson Dart pass that was never there and made a massive return of his own, 55 yards deep into New York territory to set up a 42-yard field goal by Jake Moody as time expired. Those 2 big plays put Washington up, 19-7, and although the Giants made a valiant late push thanks to 2 takeaways, Lane and Sanistral's nearly back-to-back heroics proved the difference in the score. Carter seems to have learned his lesson. This was by far 2025 number 3 overall pick Abdul Carter's best game of his young career. In the Giants' previous contest, a Week 13 loss to the Patriots, Mike Kafka benched Carter for the first quarter. It was the second time the pass rusher had been disciplined this season. He responded in that one with his first full sack after going without one in 12 straight games. With a bye to prepare and continue to focus as a professional must, Carter came up huge against the Commanders, playing from start to finish with a fire. In the first quarter alone, he logged a 3rd down strip sack, 3 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. He also forced a holding penalty. Though his first forced fumble was recovered by Washington, he made sure the Giants got his next one, landing on it himself after ripping the ball out of Jeremy McNichols' grasp with 2:42 left in the game to give New York one last chance at victory. Although the Giants fell short, they'll come away the most optimistic they've been in Carter's future. Two benchings isn't an ideal way to make a rookie see the light, but if he's indeed seen it, Carter has all the talent in the world to build on this. Two Washington offensive weapons make statement. Both Jacare Kroski-Merritt and Terry McLaurin have endured trying campaigns. They brighten their experience as much as one can in a 4-10 season on Sunday. A preseason darling who seemed to make Brian Robinson expendable, Kroski-Merritt faded behind Chris Rodriguez Jr. in the backfield pecking order as time has gone on. He hadn't eclipsed 40 rushing yards since Week 6 and hadn't found the end zone since Week 5, but with Rodriguez out due to an ailing groin, Kroski-Merritt once again received a chance to be the guy. The seventh-round rookie made the most of it, and by a couple minutes into the second frame already had 44 yards and a score. He finished the contest with 96 yards and the TD on 18 totes, good for 5.3 yards per carry. He ran hard and effectively throughout, consistently keeping the Commanders ahead of the Chains, and it'll be interesting to see if he's earned back a larger portion of the rotation in the team's remaining games. As for McLaurin, he had been either ineffective or injured for most of 2025 after a contentious contract dispute wiped out his training camp. He looked himself against New York, breaking free for a 51-yard TD catch in the fourth quarter to keep the Commanders out in front. In the past 3 games since returning to the field, McLaurin has 206 receiving yards and 2 scores, providing a glimmer of hope that he'll live up to his extension yet. Next-gen stats insight for Commanders Giants via NFL Pro. Despite completing less than half of his passes against man coverage, 7 of 16, Jackson Dart threw for 100 yards and both of his touchdowns when the defense was in man-to-man. Dart also gained 63 rushing yards on 9 carries, his second highest rushing total this season. NFL research. Jalen Lane is the first rookie in Commanders history to return multiple punts for a touchdown in a season and the first Washington player with 2+ punt return TDs since Brian Mitchell in 1994. Eagles get back on track, roll over hapless Raiders. The cure to a 3-game losing streak. Playing the Las Vegas Raiders. A Philly offense, which hadn't put up more than 21 points in 5 consecutive games, and couldn't get out of its own way during a 3-game skid, got anything it wanted on Sunday. Jalen Hurts calmly picked apart the Raiders' secondary, tossing 3 touchdowns, including a dime on 3rd down to A.J. Brown to open the fourth quarter, his final play of the blowout. Hurts repeatedly found a wide-open Dallas Goedert, who Vegas forgot to cover several times. If not for a dropped TD, Goedert would have had a hat-trick scoring day. The laugher of a game allowed Hurts and the starters to sit out the bulk of the fourth quarter. Saquon Barkley and the ground game found easy holes up the gut. Philly's rushing attack gobbled up 183 yards. After weeks of struggling to move the ball consistently, the Eagles had 3 drives of 10+ plays and went 3 and out just once with Hurts under center. Philly's offense needed a game like Sunday to get the positive vibes back. Philly's defense continues to swarm. Vic Fangio's defense is a smothering bear. The Eagles didn't give the Raiders' offense breathing room. The front, even without Jalen Carter, dominated the line of scrimmage, holding Ashton Jeanty in check and discombobulating starting QB Kenny Pickett. Philly generated 4 sacks, allowed a measly 75 yards and 7 first downs. Brandon Graham turned back the clock, overpowering the Raiders' offensive line for 2 sacks. A sticky secondary forced checkdown after checkdown and didn't miss tackles. The Eagles' D forced 4 3-and-outs. Philly did what it should against a belabored Raiders offense. Pitching a shutout didn't even feel like a surprise. Dating back to Week 14, Philly hasn't allowed a touchdown in 20 drives. Kenny Pickett struggles against his former club. The QB change didn't spark the Raiders' offense. Taking over for an injured Geno Smith, Pickett took a trove of checkdowns, averaging 2.6 yards per attempt on 15 of 25 passing for 64 yards and a pick. The former first-round pick took 4 sacks and threw an ugly int in which he appeared to predetermine the pass pre-snap. Brock Bowers was blanketed by Zach Bond, who made the easy int. The Raiders' offensive line continues to get dominated. Vegas didn't generate a drive of over 30 yards in 8 drives. The Eagles' final drive of the game, with Tanner McKee under center, went 79 yards. The Raiders netted 75 the entire game. That's how far Pete Carroll's team is behind contenders. Next-gen stats insight for Eagles Raiders via NFL Pro. Jalen Hurts completed 12 of 15 passes for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Eagles' Week 15 win, including 9 completions for 161 yards and a score on just 10 attempts against zone coverage. Hurts' 90.0% completion percentage and 16.1 yards per attempt against zone both established new career highs. NFL research. Goedert has 5 rec TD thrown behind the line of scrimmage this season, the most by a non-RB in the next-gen stats era, second most among all players behind only Devon Achane last year, 6. Goedert has just 6 total receptions behind the loss in 2025, 5 for TDs. Surtain's pick helped turn the tide for Denver. The Packers drove for a touchdown 61 seconds into the second half, taking a 23-14 lead, and they had the ball and momentum. That's when Jordan Love's deep pass to Christian Watson was undercut and intercepted by Patrick Surtain too. That was the momentum changer the Broncos needed, and they outscored Green Bay, 20-3, from that point on in the statement victory, Denver's 11th straight. With New England losing earlier in the day, the Broncos were able to increase their chances of landing the top seed in the AFC. The Broncos' defense had its hands full with a Packers offense that scored on its first 5 drives of the game, but it took over after Surtain's pick, even intercepting Love a second time. The Broncos certainly made it interesting with 2 fourth-down failures in the final 5+ minutes in an 8-point game. But Denver forced 2 fourth-down stops of their own, shutting the door late. Packers hit hard by injuries and loss. The Packers suffered a slew of injuries to major contributors on Sunday, losing right tackle Zach Tom in the first half and wide receiver Christian Watson and pass rusher Micah Parsons in a particularly painful third quarter. Watson's return had added a dimension to the Packers' offense, so his potential loss again could hurt. The Packers netted only 55 yards after he got hurt. Then there was Parsons, who was having another huge game and at least speeding up Bo Nix's throws. Parsons was chasing Nix when he suffered a non-contact left knee injury that's feared to be a torn ACL. That, obviously, would be devastating news. Like Watson, Parsons' absence was clearly felt. The Packers allowed 3 straight TD drives in the second half and couldn't heat up Nix enough with Parsons out. With the loss at Denver, the Packers once again flip-flopped with the Bears and now find themselves as the last team in the NFC playoff field currently. Just a brutal day in Denver. Nix was terrific for Broncos. Even with a few missed throws late, Bo Nix had one of his better games as a Bronco, throwing for 4 TD passes and especially stinging Green Bay's defense on the move. The Packers were able to get some pressure on Nix but not sack him once on 34 dropbacks, as he constantly evaded the rush and found open receivers. Early on, Nix showed great trust in receivers such as Michael Bandy, who caught his first NFL TD, and Lil Jordan Humphrey, who had a diving catch for a score. Nix also converted some big fourth downs, including a third-quarter sneak and a fourth-quarter go route to Courtland Sutton. The Broncos failed to finish off their final 2 drives, both of which ended on fourth-down stops, but Nix was spectacular against a good Green Bay defense, even with Micah Parsons hurt for the fourth quarter. On a day when one of the NFL's best defenses was tested early, Nix and the Broncos' offense helped pick up the slack and turn the tide in a big win. Performances such as these convince you that the Broncos will have a shot to compete for a Super Bowl title this season. Next-gen stats insight for Packers-Broncos via NFL Pro. Jordan Love's second-quarter TD pass to Josh Jacobs had only a 25.3% completion probability. NFL research. The Broncos are 7-1 all-time in home games against the Packers, which is Green Bay's second-worst road record versus any active franchise, 0-7 at Bills. Rams dominate second half, blast past Lions. After a back-and-forth, explosive-filled first half, Los Angeles flexed its top-seeded muscle and ran away from Detroit. The Rams headed into halftime trailing, 24-17, having given up 271 yards to Detroit. Matthew Stafford then ripped darts, and the defense smothered Jared Goff. LA outgained Detroit, 179 yards to 5 in the third quarter, scoring 17 points to take control. Stafford was off a tick early, but found his mojo, zipping lasers and on-the-mark lobs. The MVP candidate torched his former team for 368 yards on 24 of 38 passing with 2 touchdowns and an early interception. Puka Nacua, 9 receptions for 181 yards, was unstoppable, making massive catches to move the chains. At this point, Puka is unguardable. The ground game with Kyren Williams 15/78 and Blake Corum 11/71 churned out yards and thrived in the red zone, where LA has struggled at times. The Rams' defense closed down the Lions' big plays in the second half, smothering the Lions, forcing 3 consecutive 3-and-outs to turn the tenor of the contest. When the Rams are playing complementary football, they're the best squad in the NFC. Lions sputter with playoff hopes dwindling. Jared Goff and the Lions looked up to the moment, searching for a big win on the road versus the current number 1 seed. With solid protection, Goff shredded LA, making pinpoint plays downfield to Amon-Ra Street. Brown 13 163 2 and Jamison Williams 7 134 1. The Lions moved up and down the field with explosives early. When those dried up, and the offensive line became leaky, the Lions couldn't move the ball in the second half, only finding pay dirt when down 2 scores late. The Rams did a spectacular job bottling up Jahmyr Gibbs, not allowing the explosive back to get loose. Gibbs generated just 58 scrimmage yards, including just 38 on 13 rushing attempts. Gibbs earned just one play over 10 yards. The Lions' run game was smothered, generating just 70 yards. With a banged-up defense, the offense couldn't afford the third-quarter lull that changed the game. With Sunday's loss, the Lions fall to 8-5, needing to win out and get some help to return to the postseason. Detroit has a 40% playoff probability, per Next Gen Stats. Rams punch playoff ticket. Sunday's win moved Sean McVay's squad to 11-3, retaining their spot as the number 1 seed in the conference. LA stays atop the NFC West, keeping pace with the 11-3 Seahawks. The dueling winners are set to face off on Thursday night in Seattle for a massive showdown for the division lead and the top seed. The Rams could be without Davante Adams for the pivotal showdown. Adams left the game early in the fourth quarter after pulling up lame with a hamstring injury. The Rams would miss the big wideout, particularly in the red zone, if the injury is a long-term issue. Next Gen Stats insight for Rams-Lions via NFL Pro. Puka Nacua caught 9 of 11 targets for a career-high 181 yards, including all 4 targets for 134 yards on vertical routes. This marks back-to-back games with over 100 yards on vertical routes for Nacua, who recorded 5 receptions for 139 yards. And 2 touchdowns on such routes last week against the Cardinals. NFL research. Kyren Williams joined Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk and Steven Jackson as the only Rams players with 1,000-plus rushing yards in 3 or more consecutive seasons. Shao has ice in his veins. A methodical, grind-it-out battle between division rivals meant Tyler Shao, New Orleans rookie quarterback, would have a limited amount of opportunities to lead his team back in the second half. For a moment, when Shao's scramble for a first down came up painfully short on 4th and -1, it seemed as if he'd failed to capitalize on their best remaining chance to tie the game. But as we eventually learned, Shao was only getting started. He feasted on soft coverage deployed by Carolina later in the fourth, driving the Saints 78 yards by firing a collection of accurate bullets before taking advantage of single coverage by throwing a third-down dart to Chris Olave to tie the game at 17. When the Saints got the stop they needed late in the game, Shao coolly moved the offense to midfield by finding running back Audric Estime twice before turning back to Olave for a gain of 15, setting up a gutsy QB keeper that ended with Shao sliding and drawing a roughing penalty to set up the game-winning field goal. The average NFL rookie quarterback doesn't have the confidence or processing ability to make this type of comeback happen, yet Shao has now done it in 2 very different fashions against a pair of NFC South opponents in consecutive weeks. He's not perfect, but with more reps, Shao is growing into the quarterback the Saints hoped they were getting when they drafted him in April. Sunday was just the latest chapter in his nascent NFL journey. Panthers waste golden opportunity. Carolina entered Sunday with a chance to gain a 1-game lead on the tail-spinning Tampa Bay Buccaneers and only had to take down the cellar-dwelling Saints in order to accomplish the goal. The Panthers handled the task properly for most of the game, limiting opportunities by embarking on long-scoring drives and leaning on Bryce Young to make key throws, but they failed to finish the job in the second half, allowing the Saints 2 possessions in the game's final 5 minutes and crumbling under pressure. It was almost as if the Panthers had been blindsided by a haymaker in the fourth, watching Shao carve up their defense while failing to produce a solution, and the Mosquitoes, including 11 penalties accepted against them, only made the job easier for the opposition. Unfortunately, that is not the mark of a playoff team, which is what the Panthers are hoping to become over the final 4 weeks of the season. Instead of proving themselves as one, they lost a game they'll definitely wish they had back, reducing the NFC South race to a battle between 2 teams just aiming to prevent self-inflicted catastrophe. Kellen Moore deserves a pat on the back. With just 2 wins to their name entering Week 14, the Saints had every reason to pack it in and shift their focus to an off-season vacation. They've done the exact opposite in the last 2 games, going toe-to-toe with division foes, pursuing a home playoff game and looking like a hungry team that is buying what their new coach is selling. Despite trading away Rashid Shaheed and Trevor Penning and mutually parting with Brandon Cooks, all moves that suggest they're nowhere near competing, New Orleans has played with renewed energy in the last few weeks, a reality that points right back to Moore's impact on the team. He's doing a great job with Shao, who continues to steadily improve, and when all of the pieces come together on a given Sunday, the Saints can be a scrappy team that certainly isn't going down without a fight. That bodes well for their future with Moore at the helm, even if there's work left to be done on the roster. Next Gen Stats Insight from Panthers Saints via NFL Pro. Tyler Shaw completed 24 of 32 passes for 272 yards and a touchdown in the Saints' win over the Panthers. Shaw had 162 of his yards and his lone touchdown in the fourth quarter, leading the Saints from a 10-point deficit to victory. Finally, when blitzed, Shaw completed 10 of 11 for 110 yards and a touchdown. NFL research. Tyler Shaw and Jaden Daniels are the only rookie QBs in the last 10 seasons to lead a game-winning drive in back-to-back games against a team with a winning record. Seahawks survive slogfest. For the second straight week, Seattle went into halftime with 6 points. On their first such occurrence, the Seahawks exploded for 31 second-half points to blow out the Falcons. It was tougher sledding against the Colts, but they still got the job done for an 18-16 victory despite being kept out of the end zone all day. Kenneth Walker III disappeared with just 1.9 yards per carry. Sam Darnold's stat line was clean. He threw for 271 yards on 22 of 36 passing for an 84.4 passer rating, but he seemed especially out of sorts early on. He was also very lucky his second quarter fumble went out of bounds instead of setting up the Colts in the red zone. Still, he made the plays he needed in crunch time, leading 3 straight fourth quarter field goal drives of 66, 82 and 25 yards, with each of the last 2 giving Seattle a lead. Jackson Smith-Njigba also came on late, tallying 82 second-half yards to finish with 113 on 7 catches. He was Seattle's best offensive player as he has been all season, though it was Jason Myers who proved the biggest hero. Myers made a remarkable 6 field goals, including a 56-yard game winner, which was his 4th from 46 yards or more. Those boots delivered the Seahawks a win, but it'll be an uneasy one heading into Thursday night against the Rams. Seattle has not played like a Super Bowl contender offensively in 6 of its past 8 quarters. Rivers can't get it done. There's a movie version of Sunday's game in which Philip Rivers, 44 years old and now a grandfather, unretires after nearly half a decade away from the game to help reverse the Colts' ongoing collapse with a Week 15 win. The Seahawks agreed to no such script, instead eking out a hard-fought victory to ensure there'd be no deus ex machina for Indianapolis in the wake of Daniel Jones' season-ending injury. As always, Rivers was a gamer. He hung tough when blitzed, going 4 of 5 for 38 yards, and even threw a touchdown, his first regular season TD toss in 1,806 days. However, the Colts held a lead for most of the contest and had a chance to win mostly in spite of him. He threw for only 120 yards on 18 of 27 passing, most of which was delivered short or behind the line of scrimmage. He went 16 of 18 on passes under 9 air yards. On anything 10+, he was 2 of 8. Those throws often came out like shot-putted ducks, failing as they got closer to the intended target. His limitations became especially apparent when the Colts continued running the ball down late during a 2-minute drill, including on a 3rd and 7 to settle for a 60-yard Blake Group field goal. That kick went through, but once the Seahawks pulled ahead again with 22 seconds remaining, the first chapter of Rivers' comeback ended on an interception shortly thereafter. Seattle's defense is championship caliber. It was only because of the Seahawks' defense and Jason Myers' leg that Sam Darnold and company were able to get away with stalling time and time again. Although Jonathan Taylor finished with a respectable 87 rushing yards, it took him 25 carries. His 3.5 yards per carry tied for his second lowest on the season. The game plan coming in absolutely had to be preventing Taylor from breaking any big ones, and it was certainly mission accomplished in that regard. He was stuffed on 16% of his carries and had only 1 carry for 10+ yards. With Taylor slowed and Rivers still acclimating to life back under center, the Seahawks bought enough time for their offense to wake up. Nick Emenwari added to his stellar rookie season with 7 tackles, a sack, a QB hit, a tackle for loss and 2 of the team's 6 passes defensed. Boye Mafe had 4 pressures, while Leonard Williams had 3 pressures and 2 QB hits. Ernest Jones had a team-high 10 tackles, bringing his total over 100 for a 4th straight season. Contributions came from all over, one of the reasons Seattle will be a problem for anyone. Next Gen Stats Insight for Colts Seahawks via NFL Pro. Jackson Smith-Njigba caught 3 of his 4 targets over 10 air yards for 86 yards, giving him a league-leading 1,105 downfield receiving yards on the season. NFL research. The Seahawks won despite being held to 2 of 13 on third down, 15.4% by Indianapolis. They now have the 3 lowest third down conversion rates of any team in a win in 2025. Purdy puts away Titans with his arm. On Kyle Shanahan's 46th birthday, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy gave his head coach the gift of an efficient outing that delivered a drama-free rout over the lowly Titans. Purdy was simply stellar, completing 23 of 30 passes for 295 yards with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, while also producing 44 yards rushing. His right arm powered an offense that scored touchdowns on 4 of its first 5 possessions, and his legs also made plays when throws weren't there to make, lifting a unit that converted 9 of 15 third down scenarios, 1 for 1 on fourth down on the afternoon, and giving the punting unit a day off. Ricky Pearsall led Purdy's receivers with 6 receptions for 96 yards, while tight end George Kittle 88 yards, TD, and wide receiver Jawan Jennings 37 yards, 2 TDs did the scoring. Christian McCaffrey chipped in with 87 scrimmage yards and a rushing score in a muted day for his usual standard, but Sunday belonged to Purdy, who produced a season-high 140.3 passer rating. Winners of 5 of their last 6 and riding a 4-game win streak into Week 16, the 49ers did what was expected against a 2-win club but improved their standing in the playoff picture and remain afloat within a heated NFC West race. Simmons sequence highlights Titans' 12th loss. Tennessee couldn't keep up with San Francisco's efficient offense on Sunday, but one sequence in the second half provided a moment of awesomeness for the Titans. Jeffrey Simmons strip-sacked Brock Purdy late early in the fourth quarter for the Titans' only takeaway of the game. 2 plays later, Tennessee's star defender was dancing in the end zone after receiving a 1-yard pass from Cam Ward. Simmons' third career receiving TD was prefaced by his 9th sack of the season, a career high for the 3-time Pro Bowler. While Simmons has been one of the brightest spots for Tennessee, Ward also showed improvement on Sunday, producing his highest passer rating, 101.2, as a pro on Sunday after completing 18 of 29 passes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Ward had a couple of nice throws downfield, including a 34-yarder to tight end Gunnar Helm and a 43-yard strike to Van Jefferson before the Simmons TD, but he also missed a couple of deep shots in the first half and was fortunate not to have a pick. In a season focused on Ward's development, the rookie provided a performance that should convey promise, but Simmons' amazing sequence was no doubt the highlight. Niners defense flying around, missing opportunities. Having lost multiple star defenders due to injury, Robert Saleh's unit is playing well considering the circumstances, but missed opportunities will certainly be looked back upon in the film room. Safety Malik Mustafa dropped a sure interception in the first half and Jair Brown couldn't corral another would-be pick later in the game. Those plays likely wouldn't have changed the outcome Sunday, but it was a reminder of San Francisco's lack of takeaways this season. San Francisco's secondary had a couple of busted coverages that amounted to Tennessee points. It didn't help that the Niners' pass rush didn't notch a sack against a Titans offense that's given up 49 entering Week 15, ranks 29th in NFL. Saleh still schemed up a solid game that had linebackers Cam Robinson and D. Winters flying around with enthusiasm and defensive back Upton Stout providing solid play either in coverage or as a blitzer. With the 49ers' offense seemingly peaking late into the season, their defense still has some things to work on. Next-Gen Stats Insight for Titans 49ers via NFL Pro, Brock Purdy completed 17 of 23 passes for 235 yards and 3 touchdowns, all of which came on throws of longer than 2.5 seconds, in Week 15 against the Titans. Purdy averaged 3.28 seconds to throw. His average time to throw this season, 3.16 seconds, is the second longest of any quarterback with 150-plus pass attempts. Purdy also thrived under pressure, completing 6 of 9 such passes for 73 yards and 2 of his touchdowns. NFL Research. Jeffrey Simmons had 1 sack and caught his second career touchdown, becoming the 4th player since 2000 to record 8+ sacks and a touchdown catch in the same season. Vikings D all but ends Cowboys' playoff hopes. Minnesota was mathematically eliminated from postseason contention prior to kickoff, and the Vikings defense went ahead and all but extinguished the already fleeting playoff hopes of the Cowboys, who now have a 1% chance at the postseason, per Next-Gen Stats. Defensive coordinator Brian Flores' blitz-heavy contingent largely stymied Dak Prescott's passing attack. With the Cowboys forced to regularly settle for Brandon Aubrey field goals attempts and the long leg of the West uncharacteristically missing a pair of attempts, Minnesota wrested away a primetime win along the final stretch of a disappointing season. The NFC North's last-place team still boasts a top 10 total defense despite its losing record. Led by Andrew Van Ginkel, 6 QB pressures, 4 tackles, half a sack, and Harrison Smith, 6 tackles, 4 QB pressures. The Vikings were coming from everywhere, with 11 players registering at least 1 pressure. Regardless of being done with any postseason aspirations, Minnesota's D came to play. Prescott, passing game never find rhythm. Entering Week 15, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens had become the first team duo to average 85-plus receiving yards per game apiece since the Chiefs' Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce 2020. The Vikings' stingy pass defense held Lamb and Pickens in check for the majority of the game, though, with Pickens' 3 receptions and 6 targets for 33 yards failing to bounce back from a bad showing against the Lions in Week 14. Lamb, returning after he was concussed against the Lions, had 111 yards for his 3rd straight triple-digit game, but the Cowboys, the NFL's leading passing offense, was a relatively pedestrian operation, going 2 of 12 on 3rd down and failing to come up big when needed most. Prescott was fine, going 21 for 34 for 294 yards and an 84.4 rating, but he needed to be great to win this one, and just wasn't. JJ connection still not there despite QB improvement. It's been a massive letdown for the Vikings going from a 2024 campaign in which they were 12-2 after 15 weeks, so the onus has become the maturation of J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's resolve and unwavering confidence to keep on keeping on was showcased on Sunday. After throwing a volleyball interception on his first play, one in which Cowboys safety Donovan Wilson swatted a McCarthy pass right back to the QB, who batted it right to Quinnen Williams. McCarthy came back strong. He wasn't sensational, but he led well, throwing a pair of touchdowns to Jalen Nailor, tallying a 108 rating and piloting his squad to a win. However, one major problem that continues is McCarthy's failing chemistry with Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, who had just 2 catches for 22 yards on 8 targets, is still one of the game's best wide receivers, though you'd hardly know it as he has just 2 touchdowns this year to go with 66 catches for 832 yards. Jefferson looked to have his first TD since Week 9 in the second quarter, but it was called back on an illegal formation penalty. 3 plays later, an untouched McCarthy bootlegged into the end zone, doing the gritty, Jefferson's well-known TD celebration, for the last yard or 2 across the goal line. McCarthy later missed a wide-open Jefferson high late in third and the 2 couldn't connect again in the end zone when a high laser beam from McCarthy went off Jefferson's hands. Jefferson is the best player on the Vikings, signed to a massive contract. McCarthy is the hopeful franchise QB of the future. For this to work in the Twin Cities, the two have to get on the same page. Next-gen stats insight for Vikings Cowboys via NFL Pro. Dak Prescott was blitzed on 46.3% of his dropbacks, with the Vikings pressuring him on 73.7% of their blitzes. Prescott was 13 of 19 for 161 yards when he was blitzed but had no touchdown passes in a game for the first time since Week 8 against the Broncos. NFL research. Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey missed 2 field goal attempts on Sunday night, equaling his total misses for the season entering the game. It was the 3rd time in 3 NFL seasons that he's missed 2 field goals in a game.